James is having strawberry chocolate waffle again. I'm having hot beet chocolate, and there's some coconut whipped cream there. And Angel's gonna have that. It's a breakfast bar. I'll talk about that while we're sitting down.
And while she's chowing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, cold. You may be thinking, well, how can I possibly convince my children to have hot chocolate with beets in it, with beet juice, made with beet juice? Well, you could, Halloween's coming up, and you could call it bloody hot chocolate, because it looks like blood. Oh, I gotta see if Angel wants this. Opie liked it right away. She says no.
Oh, she poked her head back in there like a turtle and been exposed
We'll
to...
put her in there. We'll
Yeah.
see if she eats it when she's warm. She's shivering.
Yes.
She can sit in there with it.
Well, her ears look as though they're going to shake off.
So here's
That's
your
it.
whipped cream to go with
Thank
it,
you.
the coconut cream.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk about the tomato harvest. James and when we pulled in the final harvest of the green tomatoes, we got just over 100 pounds.
I'd say 101 pounds and a little bit
And then
of change.
plus what we got that I haven't weighed yet.
What that I picked the other day or
Yeah.
yesterday? No, the day before yesterday.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't know. That might be 3 pounds more. 4
So,
would be-
and that
Quite
doesn't
impressive.
count all the tomatoes we were eating beforehand.
Well, I figure we had
So-
about 80 pounds maybe. That's a preliminary sort of thing. That might be a slight overestimation.
But anyway, now I showed you this package when I collected seeds from this tomato package years ago. I can't remember, 2017 or 16 or something like that. Anyway, and this is a non-GMO collection of tomatoes. And so if you find something that's non-GMO, this one was not organic, but it's non-GMO, so you can grow it organic. Just if you find a genetically modified thing. If it doesn't say it's non-GMO, it's GMO. So you can never grow that organic. It's always going to be genetically modified. So this tomato package was $6 for 1.5 pounds. So if you work that out, how much did you save, James, with your garden?
Well, if we're not taking time and energy into consideration, $6
For 1.5 pounds.
And or 1.5 pounds. Oh my gosh, $6 for 1.5 pounds. That's $4 per pound.
Yeah.
So we made $400 worth. Well, we picked $400 of tomatoes over let's say the Thanksgiving weekend.
That would be if it was, over the Thanksgiving weekend. You're right.
And then we might have got $720 worth of tomatoes from your garden and my garden.
So, if you do it like James was doing, watering by hand, and what I took over, which is not the way to do it, then that's a lot of time, and you got to factor in your time. Now, if you do it with soaker hoses, you plan it all out ahead of time, and you stick some soaker hoses and some timers out. Well, that's a minuscule amount of time that you're putting into setting that up, and it pays for itself. The soaker hoses, what are you going to pay, $20 each for them? And the timers, I don't know, that varies in the price, but you don't have to pay very much for them either. So, and you can run one timer with quite a few hoses. But I run several timers when I do it, and several soaker hoses. And you just get a connector that You can put many off of it, many off your water hose, off your water tap. And so, I don't know, even if you spend $200 on equipment, you can keep using that equipment. Just remember, this time of year, you don't want to be moving your soaker hoses. You don't want to be touching them at all in the winter. You don't want to touch them when it's cold.
They get very
brittle.
fragile.
They will break. So that's all. Your soaker hoses will last you maybe forever if you don't touch them when it's cold. So set up where they're going to be and just leave them there. You don't need to move them at all. If you set up your bales or you set up where you're going to grow things, you can grow tomatoes in the same spot every single year and it won't matter. Especially if you're fertilizing, you don't need to touch that. So that's up to you. And if you want to grow something with your tomatoes, like my peat bale row, I always have something going on, like beans, like this. I like rattlesnake beans, but you can grow whatever. You could grow peas with them. If you can grow sweet peas up the wall. Boy, that'd be nice, eh? And that'll give you some nitrogen. In those things, legumes fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. They take it from the atmosphere and supply it to your plant's roots, where all of the rest of your plants that are in your bales are feeding off of. So then that saves you on having to use fertilizer or having to use much of it. I mean, I used fertilizer this year, and wow, did I ever have a huge crop of tomatoes and stuff, but I was too tired. No, I didn't use that much, but I was tired, and I didn't feel like doing the composting thing. Like, you have to really be gung-ho about it in the spring, and I was not. And I think that had something to do with the winter just being so long. I don't know, but I didn't want to do it. So
it was very long.
Yeah. Anyway,
I too recommend using soaker hoses. I would have been all gung-ho for it, but there's a criminal ring in my neighborhood.
Oh, you're worried about people turning monkeying with things and stuff.
Yeah, flooding up my basement.
I don't think people would. I don't know. They're into stealing things, but I've had some vandalism with
I had one
stuff,
neighbor who turned my hose on. That's a neighbor. So I'm not saying it's a neighbor.
No.
I'm hearing now it's a break-in gang, but people have vandalized stuff in my backyard, minuscule sort of stuff, but they wouldn't necessarily understand how bad a flood could have been. So
yeah, they probably
wasn't worth the
would
risk.
Vandalize it. I don't know. There's some trouble around there, but
well, there's trouble in this neighborhood all the time.
All the time. It's interesting that it's in your neighborhood now too, though. But whatever.
I'm afraid it's in every neighborhood.
I think it's in every now.
Thank you, supervised overconsumption site SOS. Useless idiots. The law of unintended consequences.
Well, I was going to talk about those. You can call them cereal bars. You can call them breakfast bars. Whatever you like. Now, what I did is they're pumpkin peanut butter breakfast bars, or whatever you want to call them. You can make them a number of different ways, but how I made them this time is I didn't have any pumpkin seeds, so I put sunflower seeds in, but I would have put some pumpkin seeds in had I had them around. And but first, I guess I should talk about what you do first. So you have your pumpkin pulp, which I had the pulp from one whole quite large jack-o'-lantern sized pumpkin, and then I mixed that with some flour. I used rye flour, and no liquids whatsoever, and some baking soda, and then until it seemed almost like a moist kind of doughy, but not quite cookie dough yet. And then I added oats and the sunflower seeds, and chopped up dates, and what else? No, that might be it. I didn't put coconut in, but I could have, because they can eat coconut. But yeah, anyway, so I mixed that all together, and then I pressed it into a parchment lined, like a cake pan or brownie, like one of those rectangular ones, and and then I scored it. So you take it and you cut it where your bars are going to be, where to make the bars before you bake it. So this is a baked recipe, but so anyway, so I cut along there, and I oiled the knife with some coconut oil. So there would be some coconut in it, but not much. And then I stuck it in the oven, 350. And yeah, then when it comes time to, when they're cool, you lift up the parchment on both sides and just stick it on the counter or on the cutting board or whatever, and then they snap off really easily into bars. It works out really well. It's cheap and easy. And it's, oh, I forgot to put peanut butter in when I told you about, you put peanut butter in there. So you mix the peanut butter in with the pumpkin first, yeah. I used quite a bit of that. I used about a container worth of, like a small container, about this size, of peanut butter, but with the amount of a whole pumpkin. And then probably, I don't know, 4 cups of flour, and maybe 3 cups of oats, and maybe a cup of dates chopped up. I'm just guessing because I don't measure things. I just look at it and go, yeah, that seems about right. And sunflower seeds quite a bit, like maybe 2 cups or so. Anyway, and I mean, usually it's Opie who's the picky one, but he ate it right away. As soon as I offered it to him, he was like, oh yeah! But, oh, Angel ate it. It's gone now.
There we go.
So she did want to eat it, but she wanted to be warm to do so.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's, yeah. It's a bar that the dogs like. Pumpkin peanut butter. And it's good for, if you like peanut butter and pumpkin, you'll like it too. And it's a good bar. I invented it. And it's one of my works of art. I hope you enjoy it, you and your family. I'm sorry, I'm hogging all the camera time. You wanted to talk about the Bible.
Not really, but it's required reading. It's required, but not necessarily inspired reading.
Oh, I love listening to you talk about the Bible.
Well,
Yep.
as promised or threatened, yesterday I finished it up. Last night, late last night actually, about 11 o'clock. It's over 1,700 pages of stuff. And I read it in 2 sections. I read the Apocrypha and the Prophets a while back, maybe a month ago or something like that. And that would have been about 500 pages, and then about 1,200 pages of the rest. And it was enlightening to read it all basically in one chunk. So when I read the rest, it would have been somewhere between a week and 2 weeks of reading. Mm-hmm. Somewhere between 100 200 pages a day. Not necessarily fun reading. Not like reading. So I was reading the Canadian Forces edition of the Holy Bible,
which is very cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So if you get caught by terrorists up in the desert, you can hide. Whoop. Yeah. Say you're a Muslim or something like that. So
And it has
hide in the
plasticized
sand.
pages on the
Yeah,
outside.
it's awesome. So
you
I
can-
got a bit of
If you get
food
some
on it the
blood
other
on
day.
it from
No, there you
some
go.
battle splatter,
Blood
You
of
know,
gore.
wipe that right off of there.
Hose it off and away you go. You know, back to reading Jeep. But because I wanted to see how much force there was in here. Canadian forces. And it was, shall I say, reading the Old Testament, shocking, but not surprising for me. I was raised on the Bible. I memorized whole books of it. Not many whole books, but many, many pages. It's probably would have come down to 100 pages of memorization, which isn't much. It's like 1/17 of what you got there, but you try memorizing 100 pages.
Was it good?
I was about
It was good breakfast.
Good.
8 and 9 years old. Yeah? 8 and 9 years old. 100 pages of the Bible. So, the Old Testament, there's just no getting over it. It is violent. It is violent. There's not much ethnic cleansing. It's basically just genocide. And it's being enjoined on the Hebrews. Then under David and Solomon, you got imperialism. And then every so occasion there's a galump of it under Isaiah, under Hezekiah. It's small potatoes imperialism when you look at the land taken over. But it's imperialism nonetheless. But the Jews got it beaten out of them over the course of the centuries. So if anyone's going around saying, well, that's all they're doing now, it's like, come on, get off of it.
I'm not smiling about that, about James, what James is saying. I'm smiling because I keep petting Angel and then I pull my hand away and then she pulls my hand back to her,
right.
which
So,
is really
yeah,
sweet.
yeah. This is deadly serious stuff.
Yes,
I'm talking about.
I'm not smiling about what he's saying. It's
So-
not a smiling matter.
Got finished the Old Testament first. Then a couple of days back, literally a couple of days back, I started the New Testament on the 9th of October, finished up on the 11th of October. You can read it in 2 days. You could really, if you really, really concentrated, and didn't have to sleep as much as I have to with the meds that I take, you would easily do it in 1 day. 1 day. It's required reading. Do it, or else you won't understand. So, Christianity, it's just, wow, like all of a sudden, you're, after slogging through the Old Testament, and all the violence, junk like that, the ignorance, the stonings, the genocide and stuff like that.
And then you come to the New Testament and
New
you're
Testament.
like, wow, this is
With
enlightening.
love, peace, and flowers. By comparison.
Yeah.
So you'll get Paul talking about love
You
and
want
all
me to
this
get
sort of
it?
stuff.
Can
It's
you see
okay.
it? Okay.
But then he'll launch into the place of women or sex perversion. So for homosexuals, there's nothing about stoning the way there is in Leviticus 20:13 in the Old Testament. But what he says is God will take care of it. In the last judgment. Okay, so it's still ignorant. But it's not violent. But, and the place of women, Paul had lots to say, way too much to say about the place of women. So he says, husbands should love their wives, and wives should respect their husband. Okay, see, it's not it's not equal there, and there's something about that respect that makes you go, ooh, I don't like that. So it's kind of like, well, where does he use this word respect? I'll have to check the Greek to see if it's the same word, but children should respect their parents. You see, parents should love their children. Children should respect their parents. So women are being put at that level. So don't get the impression that I'm saying, oh, it's all lovey-dovey and all that sort of stuff. By comparison with the Old Testament,
By
it's
comparison,
love,
it's
peace,
very
and flower.
enlightened.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I see it as being a stage or a step. Now, the big trouble is the Catholic Church comes along.
Oh, and another thing good about Christianity is because Jesus was saying to, was it the Sadducees and Pharisees? That he was saying, well, I'm here to fulfill the law. You know, I'm not here. So I mean, mind you, really, he's look at what Jesus was saying, and it's if you were an Orthodox Jew or whatever, you would not have thought he was there to fulfill the law.
He's there to get rid of it. He's there to get rid of circumcision. He's there to get rid
exactly.
of he and his apostles, particularly his apostles. They're there to get rid of the washing of the hands.
I mean, he was a revolutionary. And when you look at that Christianity, though, the fact that he says, I'm here to fulfill the law, and that he says this is, basically the Old Testament is a part of Christianity, whatever, then he is leaving it open for Christianity to evolve and become more enlightened still.
Yeah. So I'd call him an
Which is
evolutionary. Revolution kind of suggests, particularly at this late date, that violence is going to be involved.
Oh, yes, okay. So I better not use that, because I don't mean
people
that.
get the wrong idea, So when Jackson Brown sings about the rebel Jesus, I mean, he's stupid idiot.
Like,
Do a little bit of reading.
I believe in a revolution of the mind.
Yeah.
Of the mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, honestly, that's what Jesus wanted. He wanted people to actually think and
to feel correctly. In other words, come up with the proper conclusions and then feel that way. People who just feel as a reflex, they end up feeling the wrong way so often, like, hey, the Palestinians are in trouble. The Jews must be awful racists. They're genocide.
I realized this while working through your poetry program. James was teaching me poetry last year. I was going through a very hard time, and it was a way to occupy my mind, but in a way that my mind was growing, developing. So it wasn't just busy work. It was I was learning, and it was a great experience for me. Anyway, but having done so, having went through James's poetry program, I now realize that what I was, like, I had been singing songs and whatever, and I'd make up little Aradia, daughter to be, torn from her cradle and cast to the sea, and I was keeping rhythms. Somehow, when I was singing little songs, that one's dactylic. But I did not realize it. And when I sat down to write poetry, I had a really hard time with dactylic rhythms. I couldn't make sense of them at all. And but I had been doing it. So how is that? Well, a lot of the time, amiable people, we feel things. And if you don't have the analytical side to really justify your feelings, you're just it's almost useless what you're doing. I mean, my songs were pretty and everything, but if I wanted to add to them, it was difficult for me to add on paper because I didn't have my analytical poetry mind was not developed. But James helped me develop that. So now I can make better songs, and I actually know what my feeling mind is doing when because my analytical mind has some poetry skills now. And
lots of them. She's being humble when she says it. Yeah.
So anyway, every amiable person has to do that. It's essential that you train your analytical mind. You need to think so that your feeling is correct, or else you can really get yourself into some trouble.
Yeah. Try to move from being passive. What is that lower left hand? Passive,
Amiable?
passive amiable to being passive creative as much
Well,
as possible.
Amiables are creative. It's just like I was making songs.
Yeah, you were.
I was doing a lot of creative things,
Yeah,
but
this is
now
true.
my creativity has more intellect to it to back it up,
Yeah.
you know, so I can actually what I say has more meaning.
So people have
sometimes.
got this crazy
better to get
idea
across.
that the two things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
But the best creative people have both working in tandem and together. And
Yeah.
people are trying to sell you that stuff. They're trying to sell you a crock.
Yeah, you're not going to lose your creativity that you have as an amiable person by learning. It's not going to happen. You're going to stay creative in that amiable way. You're going to keep feeling, but your analytical brain will be able to help you, help your feeling brain, so that you come up with something that's even better, even more impressive at the end.
So I have much the same thing to say about memory. People say, "Oh, memorization is counterproductive to creativity." Absolutely not. That's when I really started to take off, and it was like taking off, that feeling of power when you're in a plane. When I started to use memory techniques, I already had a pretty darn good memory.
Yeah.
But when I
well, your
started
mother
using
trained
memory
you.
techniques, I had all sorts of stuff. It's like juggling. If you're, like if you don't have much of a memory, well, you see some people are juggling one Skittle. Wow, look at me, am I creative? When you get memory, and when you start developing and you got all sorts of Skittles to be creative with, no guarantee you're going to be able to handle all the what Pauline's been doing is more learning how to handle a lot of different Skittles. And I challenged you with a lot of different forms and stuff like that. They're not like, hey, like we're going to write the zillionth sonnet ever written. Like if I gave her a sonnet, towards the end, I'd be chopping up in different lines, internal rhymes all over the place. It almost makes your eye go cross when you look at how complicated, or rather, complex the stuff is. And that's the deal. So that's something that goes even beyond the memory thing. So, yeah.
And
Like don't let people sell you about this thing. It's one thing or the other. Combine the stuff. That's why you got two sides of the brain. Use them together. The two sides of the brain are connected. Just, like reading an anatomy book. Look at it. Read.
And I wanted to mention about the coconut milk. I had put down this brand, and as you can see, this is quite thick. So once I put it in, I opened up another can, I separated the stuff, I put it in the cream in the container, and it's actually, you could make some fairly decent whipping cream out of that can. I don't know, I have a few cans to go through, so maybe one can is thicker than another, maybe there's less consistency with the product. I don't know, but I shouldn't have put down that brand because it turns out this can was good for whipping cream.
So we should be going in pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I just
'cause
want to
you're gonna
finish
freeze.
this thought up. Okay? The Catholic Church comes